Dream alumni. She was in one of the first classes, I think back in 2014. And now, as recently, she's now one of the co-executive directors for Code the Dream. So like, that's a really big jump. Can we get a quick clap for Miss Daisy? Nice. And we also have Peter, who is super passionate about learning to code, helping others. He was also a Code the Dream alumni. He recently got a job 4 months and a half ago as a Ruby on Rails developer at Tango. And Peter's just a great guy. I was speaking to him the other day about his personal journey. And honestly, if you haven't met Peter, please take the time to get to know him because he's a really passionate guy about what he does.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Jocelyn. Thanks, guys. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, Jocelyn's modest, so she wouldn't brag on herself. But so allow me this opportunity to just share a little bit about her. She is also an OG Code the Dream alum. She's been with the organization for a while in many different capacities over the years. Currently working at pendo.io. As a job, she's got her position. Don't let me mess this up, y'all. Hold on. She is she is senior technical engineer there. So shout out to Jocelyn. And it's a pleasure to be here along with my fellow alumni on this journey. And so let me just hand it back off for her to tell us what we have in store for tonight.
Thanks so much, Peter. All right, before I get into the agenda and get to nitty gritty about what we're going to do tonight, I want to get to know every single one of you. So in the chat, please, put your name, your pronouns, where you're tuning in from, and more tech groups or individuals you follow online. So whether it be on LinkedIn, social media, podcasts, let me know because I want to know. I'm actually looking for a new tech podcast. So if you have any recommendations, let me know in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get into the agenda because we have a lot going on. So let me go ahead and look through the agenda. So we did our opening. And after this, we're going to go into breakout rooms to get to know each other a little bit more. Then we're going to have our guest speaker. After that, we will be able to have a Q&A with the guest speaker. So, while she's speaking, make sure you write down your questions, if there's something you really want to know. After that, we'll do break room number 2. We'll do our closing. And then if you want to hang out, you're more than welcome to. So yeah, that's what we have going on tonight. If at any point, you feel, and we had Valentine's Day, but also it's Black History Month and color is beautiful. So, to keep embracing that, Peter made a poll, so I'll let Peter take over right now.
Thanks, Jocelyn. I appreciate that. As she's already echoed so wonderfully, this is Black History Month, and I believe our event administrators will be helping me out with a few poll questions that we have to just kind of test everybody's knowledge on this subject matter. And then again, being that we're all passionate about our technology, which is what brings us all together, we're kind of gearing the questions towards that, trying to highlight and recognize some of the people that I would consider maybe trailblazers in this industry that look like us, that represent us, and the things that they've done. So I believe
Peter, I actually do not appear to have access to the poll. Alex, do you have it?
I see it right in front of me on the screen. It's
already launched it.
Oh,
you can't
cool.
see
Okay,
it.
I guess I can't see it because I'm one of the. I guess because I'm.
That's why you can't see it. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, I got you.
Cool.
So
thanks.
if that has gone out to folks, please just kindly take a moment, fill it out, and then we'll go over the answers. I see they're coming in. Yeah, this is this is crazy. Who's picking Bill Gates, man? I knew it. I knew it was going to be one person. Okay. So I see everyone's putting in their responses. This is wonderful. We'll wait a little while longer. They're all starting to come in now.
Peter, you're gonna have to read them out at the end, so for those of us hosts who can't see them, I see the
Yes,
answer.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I'll briefly go over the questions. And you know what? While we're at it, I'll just go ahead and get started with the first one. So the first question, Lori, is who is the founder of Black Girls Code? And a majority of everyone picked option number 2, which is Kimberly Bryant, which is the correct option. I'm not sure who picked, and I'm not naming names anyways, but if I can find out, I'm looking for you afterwards. Whoever picked Bill Gates, yeah, okay. Got a bone to pick with you after this. But Kimberly Bryant, electrical engineer to start, got a wonderful background in biotech and pharma in the tech space. And her goal is to have, I think, 1 million Black girls coding by the year 2040, which is an amazing goal to have. So blazing a trail in this space, and shout out to her. So just someone to consider as you're, thinking about your careers in the tech space. The second question was, who was one of the pioneers in the development of the first personal computer? And yes, Steve Ballmer was the resounding favorite, but he is not the, and he may have been, I don't know, but I'm just referring to, and I'll give the answer. So the answer is Dr. Mark Dean, who brilliant technologist. He's got, I think, 3 of the patents for like the first PC. He's the reason, he's, one of the primary reasons why like your mouse and your keyboard and your printer can all like communicate. And he's kind of like a big deal in that respect. So just somebody to look into a little bit when you get a chance, Dr. Mark Dean. And then we'll move on to the last question, which was who was the first African-American to earn a PhD in computer science? And I'm liking the responses I got back from this one. A good majority of y'all picked Clarence Ellis and Frank Green. And it was, in fact, Dr. Clarence Ellis. So good. And I'm glad that nobody picked LeBron or Barack. Thank you. Thank you. But yes, Dr. Clarence Ellis, again, another trailblazer in this industry from an underrepresented community. He received his doctorate at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in 1969. So thank you all for your participation in that. That's awesome. As I've said, just as we're all on this journey together, just take some time to reflect and look back at some of the people who's kind of paved the way for us. And that will really kind of help you also hopefully frame your career as you go along. So thanks for participating in that. And we'll pass it back to Jocelyn for the next portion of the event.
Thank you, Peter. I hope you guys had fun and learned something new. I sure did. And speaking of fun, you get to learn some more from each other. We're about to do the first breakout room. Our admins will break you up into groups, and here you will, of course, introduce yourself again, choose a note taker, and then mainly share what you like to get out of the workshop today. There are some prompt questions. So, what would you like to get out of the session today? And what questions do you have about career search? Of course, please don't limit yourself to those 2 questions. If the conversation is really good and you guys talk about other stuff, feel free to expand on that. And then after that, we will meet back in the main room and debrief and then move on to our next part. Awesome. So admins, whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and break us out.
Yeah, and there's a document. I just pasted a document in the chat that folks can. Oh, Alex. Okay, great. Alex already did it. And come back.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. We are a little bit behind, but I want to before we move on to the next section, I want to hear briefly from like maybe 1 or 2 people, what you wrote down. So if anybody wants to raise their hand and share briefly what they wrote down. Fernando?
Yeah, I can go. I think from our group. Well, Crystal was the note taker. But I think we said seeing steps, right, in terms of job searching and things like that, on different perspectives for that as well. Crystal, do you want to add something?
I was actually going to ask if we should write our answers in the documents or just hold on to it.
Either way, you can write the answers in the document. That would be great. Then we have them there. But it's kind of up to you. It's just a helpful tool if you want it.
Okay, so we're gonna just move on. Thank you so much, Fernanda, for sharing. Again, if you didn't have the time to type your answers in the document, feel free to do that at some point today. Now we're gonna move on to Daisy, again, former Code the Dream alumni student and now co-director of Code the Dream for the next section.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Can y'all hear me okay? I was having some trouble with my audio earlier, but I sound okay? Okay, just let me know if I start to sound terrible. Like Jocelyn said, my name is Daisy. I know most of you. There's some I have not had the pleasure yet of meeting you, but I was a Code the Dream student back in 2015. And I always say joining Code the Dream, meeting Dan, meeting Ramiro absolutely changed my life. I worked as a developer at Duke University with Fernando. We were on the same team and we had a lot of fun. And now I am the co-executive director of Code the Dream. And I'm really excited at how we're growing. And it's all because of our participants like you all. And so thank you for joining today. Again, it's just wonderful to be able to work with you all as we kind of grow Code the Dream and bring more opportunity to folks. So I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our guest speaker today, Rizel Scarlett. Rizel is a developer advocate at GitHub. She's also the director of programs at G-Code House. G-Code House is a free program based in Boston. It's designed to give young women and non-binary people of color their first exposure to coding, to uncover their interests and aptitude in tech in a supportive, inclusive, and safe environment. Rizel is well known in the open source community, often speaking about how to get started in contributing to open source projects. She was also a featured speaker at All Things Open 2021. So jump on YouTube, check out her video. I watched it in real time and I was like in the chat, like, this is amazing. She really is just phenomenal. Rizel believes in leveraging vulnerability, honesty, and kindness as a means to educate early career developers. So I am thrilled and I'll pass it over to you, Rizel.
Thank you. Thanks for that really awesome introduction. You made me sound amazing. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Okay. Y'all can see it, right? Like the big slide. Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about, I tried to summarize my career in this presentation, but definitely feel free to like ask questions afterwards, put things in the chat. I'm happy to answer. But basically the title of my presentation is developing a growth mindset and leveraging Google to navigate my career in tech. And I always like to start with like something that's not about myself or like a little story. So I'll jump straight into it. So in 2019, I was super obsessed with Hamilton. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I did like it at that time. And let me move on. Yeah. So for me, when I watched Hamilton, which is a musical, if y'all don't know, I noticed that there was two themes that shaped the musical. And like one theme was kind of led by Alexander Hamilton, who was the main character. And then the other theme was more on Aaron Burr, who was like, I would say his nemesis or kind of the opposite of him. So Alexander Hamilton, his thing was like, he's not throwing away his shot. He's going to keep going for it. Meanwhile, Aaron Burr, although he had goals, he was more on the side of like waiting for those goals to come to him. And here's just a couple of like lyrics from Alexander Hamilton's song that he constantly sang throughout the whole musical. Just in case you didn't watch the musical, he says like, I'm not throwing away my shot. The problem is I got a lot of brains but no polish. He says that he's young, scrappy, and hungry, and he's very determined to get a scholarship from King's College. So you can get from this character that he's determined overall, and he understands like where he has weaknesses, but he also understands where he has strengths. As opposed to Aaron Burr, a lot of what he kept saying was like, he's not standing still, he's lying in wait, which I guess was his strategy, but he was also a little bit more annoyed by Hamilton's demeanor and how he was like just going for what he wanted. In addition to that, I do think there's two themes that shape our lives and careers. And that's like having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And now, if you're not familiar with either of those, I'll give a couple of examples. And I don't think everyone like in the world just fits into like one, just to give a disclaimer, I don't think everyone in the world fits into one bucket. I think in certain situations, sometimes I have a growth mindset and sometimes I have a fixed mindset. So it's not to like roast anybody, but just to create awareness about it. So for people with a fixed mindset, sometimes you look at skills as something you're born with, and they can't be changed. You often like look at challenges as something to avoid because they will like reveal your lack of skill. And you look at effort as something that's unnecessary. You don't really want to like keep working on it because of the fact that you think skills are set in stone and you can't really improve those. And then with feedback, you take it a little bit personally, you get defensive, and with setbacks, you tend to react in a way that you're like getting discouraged or you blame others. On the other hand, there's the growth mindset where you understand that those skills come from hard work and can always be improved. And when you're faced with a challenge, you embrace it and you look at it as an opportunity to grow. And in terms of effort, you know that it's essential to help you to become better and get on the path of mastery. And for feedback, you look at that as something useful. You know that they're helping you to improve when people point out things that could have been better. And then in terms of setbacks, you think of those as a wake-up call on how you can do better or work harder next time. So to me, for both of these people, I think Alexander Hamilton is leaning a little bit more on the side of a growth mindset, whereas Aaron Burr is leaning more on the side of a fixed mindset. Although I don't think like they're just like in those boxes alone. There was a little bit of moments where I'm like, okay, Aaron Burr with the growth mindset, I see you. But just generally, this is where they're at. So I may want to make another disclaimer too, that I do think that sometimes growth mindset and fixed mindset is set in ideologies that are a little bit classist. And there are certain situations where people wouldn't be able to envision themselves in like a better spot because of sexism or racism or xenophobia or whatever, because they're victims to systemic inequity. I just want to check the chat real quick. Okay, cool. If you like the analogy, thank you. So why does any of this even matter? And I think that matters because adopting a growth mindset is really vital for the success of every software engineer or technologist. Our field is always changing, as you all probably already noticed. Like there's always a new framework, there's always something happening. And sometimes it can be difficult to adapt to change, but we got to learn how to do that and how to push ourselves to grow a bit more. So oftentimes people ask me questions like, how do you become a software engineer or a developer advocate, or how do you even get into tech? And I kind of tell them about my experience or give them a couple suggestions, but I often hear a lot of can'ts. Like people are like, oh, I can't self-teach, I can't go to boot camp. Obviously, y'all didn't let that hold you back. You did a coding boot camp called Code the Dream. People say they can't afford things, they're not smart enough, they can't work at this company. They're like, oh, I want to work at like, I don't know, Google, Microsoft, whatever. And they're like, you know what, I can't because I already applied and I didn't get in. Sometimes I'm like, oh, write a blog post. They're like, I can't. Like, it's just a lot of can'ts. And I understand where they're coming from, because there's fear, there's confusion, there's a lack of knowledge. They're like, how do I even get in? But I do think when you just start saying can't all the time, you're limiting yourself before you can even try. And I think that if you do want it, there is like options you can try out to make it work. And I know that like us as minorities, we're in a unique situation where we're not exposed to career paths in tech. So we don't even know about these other positions. Like maybe we only know about software engineering, or we just figured out about that. But I would definitely say like one benefit that we have is that tech companies, if you haven't noticed, they're not that diverse, and they really want more minorities to help fill their diversity quota, which I guess is a bad thing, but it's also something that we should take advantage for. And it's not something we should wait for. We should go ahead and like take that shot. So if you're like me, and you grew up in a family that's like, I don't know what tech is, I've never like explored that industry or anything like that, use Google. Like that was the answer to everything for me. Just not only like Googling how to solve certain problems on Stack Overflow, but also solving like career issues or figuring out like how to get from point A to point B. So I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. I know Daisy already did. Like she said, I am a developer advocate at GitHub. I'm a full stack, well, I was a full stack software engineer for about 3 years, and I'm also the director of programs at G Code House. And I'm passionate about empowering others, educating others, especially about technical topics. And I'm also, I have a passion for learning, and I'm pretty addicted to Twitter. So if you did want to connect with me, you can find me on practically any social media platform at Black Girl Bites. I'm most active on Twitter though. And then also I'm just a regular person, obviously. This is me and my husband. This is me when I was 5, wishing my mom was giving me food instead of whoever that kid is. Not sure who he is. That's me and my family, and that's me and my friends. Okay, so let's talk about turning our can'ts into can, and like I don't want to say how I did it, because that seems really braggy, and like there's still things that I'm working on, but talking about like challenges I faced and how I got to work around them. So one challenge I faced is that I was undocumented. And my dream was like to go to college one day. I was like so excited. And then I did go to college, but I could only stay for 1 semester because I didn't have enough money, and I couldn't get federal financial aid. So it was kind of like all on me to do it out of pocket. And as an 18-year-old, I didn't really pick the cheapest college. So I was like, okay, I got to drop out. But luckily, during that time, I had Googled and I realized, oh my gosh, there's this thing called DACA, which stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which enabled me to be able to go to college and to at least have some documentation that I could use. I also decided, okay, I was originally studying psychology in college, but I might have to change that, because that's something that if I ever wanted to make money, I would probably have to go to grad school, which I can't afford. So I Googled what jobs make money, and tech kept coming up. So I enrolled in community college for computer information systems. And then at the same time, I worked at like a billion places. I worked at Planet Fitness, H&M, and Mass General Hospital. Sometimes I worked at all of these at the same time, which I would never do that again. It was crazy. But yeah. And then I had another challenge where I became unemployed. For those of you who aren't familiar with DACA, it expires every 2 years. And there was 1 year that even though I applied to renew it, it still didn't come through. And even though I got a letter that said it's in process, my job was like, yeah, you can't work here because it's not legal for you to work here. So I was back to being sad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am at square one again. But I didn't let that stop me for too long. I decided to Google and search for IT internships so that as soon as I got my DACA approved again, I could start working in IT. Because I was like, wait a minute, why am I still working at like Planet Fitness and all these other places when I'm studying IT? I need to go get some experience. So once my DACA got approved, I started working in IT, and I did that for about 15 months. Then I had another personal challenge, which was math. So When I was working in IT, I was surrounded by a lot of software engineers. And even though I was doing IT support, I was like, this coding thing looks kind of cool. I want to try it out. But when I look at my community college's course offerings, selection, I don't know, the requirements, they kept having math in it. It was like discrete math, linear algebra. I had a very weak math background in high school. I wasn't really bad at school, but my high school stopped at algebra 2. So I was kind of like, I'm not really trying to do all this hard math. And it was kind of scary for me. So I decided I'm going to use Google again and figure out how I can work around it. And I found free coding boot camps such as Resilient Coders, and y'all probably found Code the Dream through Google too. So high five to y'all. And then after I graduated Resilient Coders, I jumped into a job and I started to experience some work trauma. At the time, I didn't really know it was work trauma, but now in hindsight, I do. So when I was working there at my company, a lot of people said some hurtful, racist, sexist things to me that really shut down my confidence as a developer. If you think I'm being dramatic, I'll give you a couple examples. Like somebody was like, you're just trying hard because you're a minority. Or somebody said, oh, if I interviewed you, you wouldn't be working here. There was a lot of like mean stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, am I a bad developer? I don't know. So I tried to, I Googled a lot, and at first some of the attempts I made were failures. So the first thing I did is I was like, oh, I'll just like try to figure out how I can get my bachelor's degree in a short amount of time. Because I thought maybe I just don't have enough knowledge and maybe my boot camp just didn't teach me everything. So I got my bachelor's degree in 2 years, and that really didn't fix much. But also on the side, I started working at G Code because it was just made it be happier to look forward to the date. So I'd be like, cool, I'm going to G Code. I'm going to go teach people. There's people who want to talk to me, hang out with me, and kind of look up to me. And I didn't realize this until later on, but I was developing community building skills, teaching skills, content creation skills, management skills, and also strengthening my confidence. After a while, I realized I Googled so much and I'm like, there's really no solution. The best thing for me to do is to leave the company that I work at and go to a better one. So I guess I Googled a little bit, tried to find some new roles, and I found one that was way better. They were so much nicer, but I was still struggling with the work trauma that I had. If I made a mistake, they'd be like, it's okay. And I would still feel so bad and beat myself up about it. They'd be like, it's really not a big deal. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, it is, because I was so used to my past job making things such a huge deal. So I ended up having to quit because I wanted to reevaluate and figure out like where I was at and like, think about my career. So another challenge was that I was inexperienced and I wanted to become a developer advocate. Even before I quit in the initial job that I told you all about, I kept like learning about developer advocacy on Twitter. And I was like, I really, really want to do that. I feel like it combines a lot of skills that I already naturally have and I've picked up along the years, which is coding, community building, content creation, public speaking. I was like, this is like a perfect fit for me. But anytime I ask people about it, they're like, you have to be super senior. You have to like 7 years of experience. And I was like, dang, I only have 3. But I didn't want to take their word as truth. I wanted to figure out for myself. So then again, I used Google. Like y'all could see, Google is my best friend. And I started like searching people up who were developer advocates. I found their LinkedIn. I was creeping. I was like, okay, look at them. They became developer advocates, but some of them have less engineering experience than me. Some of them even became developer advocates straight out of coding boot camp. So maybe I could do this. I started having coffee chats with people. Let me just check the time to make sure I'm not going over. Oh, I am a little bit. I'll try to wrap it up. I had coffee chats with people. I created a few blog posts. I did some research and I applied for multiple developer advocate roles. At first, I was not doing that well in the interviews, but it was a good way for me to figure out what skills I was missing and how I can do better in the future. And then also I learned in public on Twitter, Like if I found something out, I would tweet about it. Even before I was looking into developer advocacy, when I was in college, boot camp, all that, I'd be like, cool, I just learned DynamoDB or whatever technical thing I learned. So after that, I found a role at GitHub, or I saw a role at GitHub, and somehow they interviewed me. But one thing was that I was missing is that they wanted someone with open source experience, and I really didn't have any. And they wanted me to do a presentation in the interview about my experience with open source. And it was really frustrating for me to figure out how to even get into it. So I just flipped my talk to talking about like my fears of open source and why I was struggling to join it and how I would improve that open source community if I worked at GitHub. So somehow they offered me the role there. And my manager encouraged me to contribute to his open source project, which was really good because now I knew the maintainer and someone who would be able to answer my questions if I had any. And overall, it was really empowering to contribute. It wasn't scary like I thought it was going to be, and it was cool to conquer one of my fears. Some of my final thoughts here. So like if you're hitting roadblocks, like you can't find a role, and you're like, man, they're not taking boot campers. There's apprenticeships at very different companies that pay very well. If you're at a toxic company and you're like, man, I want to quit software engineering, don't do that. Go to a different company. If you feel like you're not doing well in interviews, get feedback, keep getting better. Whatever it is that's holding you back, try to develop that growth mindset and don't self-reject yourself. And even if people do reject you, don't let their rejection define who you are and who you will be. In addition to that, if you find yourself saying no to something that's like your dream, try to find a way to change it to yes, like Google. I feel like it will present you with alternative options. Because even when I Googled a free coding bootcamp, I really didn't even think that was going to be an option. I thought you had to pay for all of them. And when Resilient Coder popped up, I was like, yes, I'm so excited. So deep down inside, it's scary sometimes to really keep pushing for those dreams, but like fuel your fear of rejection and failure into embracing failure and rejection. A lot of times that's where like imposter syndrome is stemming from. But sometimes like with imposter syndrome, just be like, you know what, this is something exciting. I'm going to get to learn something new rather than, oh man, this is another thing I don't know. And celebrate your losses. If you fail, be like, okay, cool. Now I figured out what not to do. So I'm closer to figuring out what I can do. Almost done, y'all, almost done. So also in addition to that, I want to remind people to bring others with you when you reach a milestone. Even if you think it's small, there's somebody else who wants to get to that milestone. So definitely like blog about it, talk about it, whatever you can do, even your successes and your failures. Because at first for me, it felt like bragging, or it was like feeling really vulnerable for me. But I realized that I'm inspiring others. And I realized that's kind of how I was inspired too, by just listening to people and being like, oh, okay, if they can do it, I can too. And then also remember, which y'all probably can relate with or understand, that for a lot of people, getting a job in tech means initiating a cycle of generational wealth. So don't like keep that information to yourself. And basically the slide just repeats about using Google and being resourceful, and whether you're on the job or in your life. And that is about it. Does anyone have questions? Let me stop sharing. Oh, I didn't even see there was comments.
There were a ton of comments. We can hardly we could hardly contain ourselves.
Yay, that's good.
That's awesome. Anybody have questions for Rizel?
Somebody just had their hand raised. Oh, there, John.
Yeah, hi. My question kind of has to do with like the coding interview and stuff like that. Like what do you think was like the biggest things that you kind of had to learn to get to kind of break through that coding interview challenge? Because I know that like with a lot of people, they kind of get like or at least I got really scared about the coding interview. I felt like it was like a whole other learning process that I had to do, and it stressed me out a lot. So I guess like, what were one of the biggest takeaways and things that you kind of researched whenever you were in that process at GitHub or any big company?
Yeah, no, that's fair. So I'll be honest, GitHub didn't even give me a coding interview because I'm a developer advocate. So it's not as and for the software engineering roles, I imagine that they'll do a coding interview, but GitHub didn't. I am terrible at coding interviews, like how you're saying, like as soon like I could code, but as soon as they like watching me, my brain just goes blank. So for me, what I've done is I just try to find jobs that don't do those traditional coding interviews, which I know maybe this is bad advice or limited advice, but I try to like ask them through the interview process, like, how do you do it? And if they say like they do a take home, that I know I thrive better that way if I do a take home interview. Or there's jobs that I've done better when I do like a system design interview. So just thinking about like what my strengths are, I know that like I can explain how I would design a system and what would happen, but as soon as like people are watching me, I all of a sudden forget the syntax. So I know that might not have been the answer you were looking for, but I hope that helps. And I know people use
No, it helped a
leak
lot.
code a lot. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it helped quite a bit. Thank you so much.
I can't see everybody's screen, so is there anybody raising their hand?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, please go ahead, Adriana.
How did you handle when you were facing the imposter syndrome? Because I saw in all your presentation that you are very resilient and you are successful and you're very strong. So I would like to know, how did you face up?
Thank you.
I call the imposter syndrome bad boy and I avoid it, but sometimes it catches me.
No, yeah, I understand. I feel like every engineer experiences imposter syndrome because it's just like, I don't know, it's just how the industry is. Everyone likes to like act like they know everything. So you feeling like, oh shoot, I'm the only one that doesn't know. This is bad. But I feel like at first I was trying to just avoid imposter syndrome, but now I embrace it. I'm like, oh, I'm scared. And instead I'm like, okay, that means I'm going to learn something new and I'm going to get better after I go over this hurdle. So that's how I try to remind myself, and I like try to make myself like get excited by it rather than like scared. Yeah.
Thank you.
It seemed to be a theme in your presentation, Rizel, was running towards fear and embracing sort of that kind of uncertainty instead of running from it, which I think is a mind shift for most of us, for sure. One thing that you mentioned was that you reached out to folks over LinkedIn, total strangers, and then you arranged to kind of hear their story. Can you give us like an idea of like, how do you do that? I know that's a really like powerful way to kind of learn about new opportunities and kind of get yourself out there, but it also can be a little bit intimidating. Do you have any advice about that?
Yeah, no, it definitely is intimidating. Because like maybe you're seeing someone and you're like, oh, this person's like the director of something. Sometimes what I've done that makes it a little easier for me is like I'll find their LinkedIn, but then I'll also find their Twitter account, and then I'll start like interacting with them slowly on their Twitter. I'll be like, LOL, da da da. So then they start thinking we're friends, and then I DM them. I'm like, hey, what's up? So that makes it easier for me. But if I don't find their Twitter, I just jump in and ask the question. Sometimes people don't respond to me, and I try not to take it personally because I'm like, maybe they're just busy, or or they just didn't see it.
Absolutely. I love that. LinkedIn is funny because sometimes people are really on LinkedIn and then sometimes people never open their messages.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just kind of, I know Lori never opens her messages. And so, so yeah, could be that if you message somebody, it kind of just goes into a void and they're not, and so definitely don't take it personal. It was just so wonderful. And I'm gonna pass it over to Peter. I know we would love to get into our small group so we can kind of digest, all the awesome things that we've heard. So Peter, can I pass it to you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Daisy. And Rizel, thank you so much for such a wonderful, impactful presentation. I certainly took a lot away from it, just from the respect of the mindset shift, something that I've learned through this experience. So appreciate that. And everybody else, hopefully, if you took something away from it, this is going to be a good opportunity for us to kind of segue into our breakout rooms for the second section and just kind of discuss the things that Rizel shared with us. A couple of questions to kind of chew on while you're in your various rooms. Just kind of think about what you're carrying away from the workshop. Some of the points that Rizel mentioned that you might want to kind of like take actionable steps to kind of implement going forward and track. The things that resonated with you, just, anywhere along those lines. I believe Lori has shared the link. So everybody please go in the chat and click on that. And admin, excellent work. They've already sent out the invites for the chat. So go ahead and break out into your rooms now, guys. Thanks. And thanks again, Rizel.
Thank you.
Oh, I think I lost mine.
You might be able to go to more, and hopefully it will still come up for you. Let's move. Let's see. I'm going to move Adriana.
Take care of it, please.
Gosh, Rizel, thank you so much. That was just outstanding. Outstanding.
Really?
I just realized I'm muted. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to speak.
My goodness.
It was really fantastic. Like, I can think of individual, of course, I think everybody was impacted, but I can think of, Alex, let's pause. Okay, I'm going to pause.
Peter, quick thing I want to say to you guys that from the end of our conversation, talk to me real slow like I'm stupid. I have to say that to people sometimes.
Yeah, you gotta let them know, like, hey man, we're not all speaking the same language. Sometimes you gotta break it down for us.
Like a 5, and we'll get there.
Yep. But all right, well, welcome back everybody to the room. Hopefully, you guys shared a lot during your breakout sessions. And we just want to take a second, open up the floor, and just kind of let you guys share a little bit what you discussed, what you took away. And also just keep in mind that there are any questions that you do have for Rizel after the fact, just kind of share that in the document and try to get those to her and facilitate them back to you at some point. So we appreciate that. And with that being said, let me just go ahead and open the floor up to the group and just, I want to hear what you guys got to say. Marcus, go ahead, sir.
What we were just talking about in the breakout room, I think, is actually something that's important for the sort of newer or people who are sort of less far in their careers here. It's like, Peter, Johan, and I are people who are working in the industry, and we were just talking about the fact that imposter syndrome is something that is still that's a thing for us too. Even now, I've been working it for 2 years in the industry. I think Johan said he's been working for like 10 months or so. And I know, Peter, I think it's like 4 months for you. It's one of those things that it doesn't stop. It's just one of those things that you have to continually deal with. It's not like there's one day you're in the industry. It's like, imposter syndrome is gone now.
Forever. Not gonna happen. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. We definitely talked about that during the, and also like Rizel had shared, you just kind of take those opportunities, not like, oh my God, I don't know this. And, I'm gonna look like I'm dumb if I man, this is an opportunity for me to learn something. And, instead of shutting in or closing in, let me open up and be vulnerable and say, hey, I really don't understand this. Could you take a second to kind of show me? And from my work experience, link after link after link is coming in to try to help me get that understanding. And then like they're following up, hey, do you want to pair on this? It's, so just being open and honest about where your weaknesses are has definitely been helpful. So, thanks for sharing that with us, Marcus. Does anybody else have anything to share?
Looks like Crystal.
Oh, yes, Crystal, you had your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I was noting about the earlier discussion about the code interviews, and I had mentioned in the chat, but want to reiterate like that there's companies with different practices, and to keep in mind the things that were really key for me were I am going to present my full self as I am right now because that's who they're going to be working with, and I'm going to take this opportunity to get to know them. And I was very careful about where I applied, not applying to everywhere. I just wanted to apply to places that I actually really wanted to work. And it was an interview, not just for me, but for them too. And to see if we were a good fit for each other. So sometimes places aren't necessarily a good fit for you. And that's okay. It doesn't say that you are, messed up or something's wrong with you. You just weren't compatible in that way. And then you move on and you find a place that is compatible with you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Crystal. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it just feeds back into it. Don't be defeated by those experiences. Learn from them, grow, move forward. It's all towards that goal, finding where that fit is for you. And I believe like for us all here in this chat, I mean, Code the Dream is part of that, right? We're all a family. We're all on this journey together. And this is, sharing this is monumental for us all moving forward in our careers. So does anybody else have anything to share? I think I saw one other Jonathan. John? Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I left the hand. Okay, yeah. I was just gonna share that about like the imposter syndrome that we talked about. Like even like staff engineers, seniors engineers, like feel imposter syndrome. It's something that at my company is like people that recently joined, they don't know things, and sometimes they're asking me things that even I don't understand. But I have a little bit more context, right? And they still feel like imposter syndrome. So it's like if like someone that has like 3, 4, 5 years of experience still have the imposter syndrome, like don't feel bad if you have like less experience and still feel it, because it is something that you just have to get used to and kind of like embrace it and enjoy the process. Because today you can be working in a project, tomorrow you're going to be working in another project with a language that you have no idea. And it's fine. Just like make connections with the people that you work with, right? And try to ask people that know more than you. And usually people are like happy to help you.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. That's been my experience as well. So for sure. Jonathan, man, you got the floor, sir.
Thank you. So similar to what everyone has said regarding imposter syndrome, I thought it was very interesting just kind of hearing how imposter syndrome just seems to manifest in people in a lot of different ways. So it was really nice just hearing how it manifested in her and how she was able to overcome it, or not overcome it, but I guess manage it in her day-to-day at GitHub as an advocate.
Yeah. And I guess to that point, actually, I would love to learn more about what a developer advocate does. So I will definitely be I'm going to be Googling that, taking her advice all the way to the top. So, yeah. And I might have to check in with her, like LinkedIn bomber with a question like she's done. Yeah, that was amazing. It was an amazing presentation, I gotta say. So I think at this juncture, I'm actually going to hand it off to one of our wonderful event administrators to kind of go over a few other items with us as a group. And Just keep in mind, we'll all be coming back afterwards. We'd like to try to get a picture with everyone. So we appreciate if everyone can be on camera, at least for that segment of it, where we can get a toast. That's sort of becoming a tradition for our events. And it's an awesome one, I think. I'd love to just continue to keep doing it. So we'll give the floor to Lori. And yeah, Lori, take it away.
Thank you so much, Peter. And just thank you so much to Jocelyn and Peter in particular for all of their work facilitating this event, planning it. Daisy for inviting Rizel. It was amazing. I was telling Daisy, I think when we first started thinking about what do we want from a Code the Dream alumni network, I think this is exactly what I was hoping for. So I'm really excited to see this kind of coming to fruition. I would not be doing my job if I did not mention that we are in the middle of our 25 and 25 alumni donor campaign. So if anyone, there are many of you on this call have already pledged or donated to Code the Dream, but we're really just hoping that if you still would like to do that, you can. I'm going to share my screen real quick. We have a new thing we're just trying out for the first time today. Let's see. It is a text to give. Can you guys see this? I can't. My screen's doing something weird.
Yep, I can.
Okay, you can see text to give.
Yeah, there's a QR code too in the
Yes, exactly. So if you would like to help us try this out, you can text to give. And I will say it's a little slow. So you, enter your stuff in, and then it asks you, do you want to donate, or how much do you want to donate? And will this be recurring? And eventually it takes you to a web form where you fill it out. So it's a little slow, but just wanted to give folks the opportunity. Yeah, so I will leave that on for like 5 more seconds, just in case you want to try it out. And yeah, so that's just, one more way that we're trying to engage people and really continue help to make Code the Dream sustainable and make sure that we can give students the opportunity for free classes for as long as possible. One other thing two other things I'll mention in terms of our alumni network. Of course, we would love for all of our alumni, especially once you get jobs, to come back and volunteer with us. We do have some classes that are going to be starting up in March. And we would love for folks to volunteer as mentors for our Rails or React classes that are going to be starting on March 16th. Also, if you'd like to help out, but you're like, oh, I really cannot take on like a mentor role right now, we also always need assignment reviewers. And that's like, you can do that anytime, night or day, middle of the night. It's an asynchronous thing. So that's another great opportunity. And I also wanted to mention, just as an update, Code the Dream is going to be starting classes in Node.js starting in June. So that's sort of a new exciting development that we are going to, we're working now on the curriculum, and we'll be starting that. And the last thing is, some of you have probably heard this, but just in case you haven't, we are we're starting a Discord server for Code the Dream. It's sort of piloting really with the alumni. If you have not yet filled out the survey about Discord, if you use it, if you want to share, feel free to do so. I just dropped the link in the chat. It's just a short survey seeing how you use it if you're interested in helping with that. So that is all. We really appreciate all of you coming on. I'm going to turn it back to Peter.
Thanks, Lori. Again, much appreciated for that information. Everybody just do well to kind of follow up, especially with the Discord. I know for me, I use it at work, and actually my cohort, my class within Code the Dream, my Rails class, I should say to be more specific, we all actually had a Discord channel as well. So yes, see the rest of y'all there, I guess, in a little bit. So yeah, I guess that is pretty much the entirety of the event. Man, I appreciate your guys' time for the evening, spending it with us. Hopefully you took as much out of it as I did, and it'll help you moving forward in your careers. Just want to wish everyone much love and success, and I think we got a little bit of time. Okay, we don't, but I'm gonna squeeze it in anyways. Go grab a drink if you don't have one, or like a hat or like a toast item. Everybody's got 30 seconds to grab something, and we're going to take a picture. Hopefully our administrators are ready for that. And
we're still waiting on the 30 seconds, right?
Imagine something's in here.
Yep, y'all, the clock is ticking. I'm watching it. Y'all are good.
All right. It's gonna take us a second because we got to do 2 screens. So, all right, Alex is way better at this than me, but okay. All right, Peter, you say when.
All right, is everybody ready? All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hold on. I'm getting my first screen, Alex. I don't know about you. That was awesome. Gorgeous. Hang on 1 second. Give me. Dun, 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 dun. Gotta go to my next screen. Okay, now I think we're good.
We're good.
Alex, we're good?
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thanks, guys. I think that officially brings the event to a close. Again, we appreciate you all joining. One last thing to kind of harp on before we all end is that if you took anything away from this and you enjoyed it, I would strongly encourage everyone to kind of let all of our friends and former alumni know, so that they can also kind of enjoy in this these kind of events, because they're definitely going to help in your career. And so just something to keep in mind moving forward. Again, appreciate all of y'all's time. Thank you for spending this last 90 or some odd minutes with us. And again, I'm looking forward to the next event. So just everybody be on the lookout for that. All right. And Lori, I don't know if you're going to play some music, but please, it's just a formal ending. Hang out, chit chat, share. I know I'm not going anywhere for a little bit. So, but yeah, DJ, go ahead and kick it.
If you have to drop off, go ahead.
Yes, please feel free to drop if you have to.
Bye, Fernando.
See y'all. Bye, Crystal.
Bye, Crystal.
Good to see you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good to see you.
everyone.